Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar. Always a delight to have you join us in our discussions. And thank you, Mr. Tripathi. This is the India Cloud Summit, and it's an absolutely action-packed day with information that can completely transform your enterprise's growth trajectory. Now, growth is good. Digital growth is better. But I always like to say, anything connected needs to have security, and that's what our next panel discussion will be all about. Now, Ashwani Mishra, our executive editor at DynamicCIO.com, joins us back to lead this panel. And I'd like to welcome Ashwani and our guests, Om Ahuja, CT and CISO at Inspira, and Mahendra Singh, team lead and cloud security specialist at McAfee. Now, Om is an experienced information security leader with experience in building and managing operations across several verticals in emerging markets. And Mahendra Kumar, our co-panelist, has over 16 years of experience with over 13 in areas of account management, pre-sales, IT security, and network architecture assessment. Let's listen in.
Thank you, Ashwin, for the introduction, and welcome back. Cloud-based services have become central to most organizations' digital transformation journeys. However, protecting systems, applications, and data in the cloud brings a new set of challenges for organizations to overcome. To discuss how enterprises can secure their cloud deployments, have visibility and control, we have with us Om and Mahendra, who have joined us for this conversation. Look forward to an engaging conversation with both of you. Om, Mahendra.
Hi. Thanks a lot, Ashwin. Hi, Mahendra.
Hi, Om. How are you? Hey, Ashwin. How are you?
Hi, Mahendra. I'm good. Thank you. I think we're good to start. In today's digital environment, the nature of threats as well as the perimeter of security is constantly evolving. They're not predefined. There has been an increase in the amount of people working remotely around the globe. Availability at all times, again, is critical and from anywhere and from any device. Endpoints, again, are no longer confined to an enterprise or to a location. Let's start with you, Om. What are the challenges that enterprises face to secure their cloud computing environments against both internal and external threats? What are the concerns that everyone really needs to be cautious about?
I think that's an interesting question, Ashwini. So, based on what feedbacks and what analysis and what we are seeing across through to our customers, they are more worried on, how my data is floating, what kind of data is flowing out, what kind of controls I have, concerns around data and usability and access of data. Second piece is in terms of, devices, what devices are getting connected, how good they are in terms of security controls, are they secure, patch, updated, etc. And the third piece is majorly in terms of, identity. Who's accessing, what access they have, what kind of control they have, how do I, measure what is being used, what is not being used, what is violating, and how do I control the violations, etc. So some of these things are major concerns, especially since there are no barriers or boundaries as we define. The earlier architecture, you would be, segmented, internal, external. Now with cloud, and thankfully, because of COVID, things have changed drastically. So these traditional definitions have changed, traditional controls have changed, and there have been a lot of disruptive changes happening around because of the innovation which is being led through. So these are some of the primary concerns, and the threats which customers foresee is, unauthorized access, data getting lost, competitive edge being lost because the data gets leaked. There has been no control. And since, as you very rightly said, the availability factor and the response factor is critical. Today, businesses are also expecting the same kind of availability and responsiveness. So the way the business architecture is changing, some of these controls become very critical. And if you lose control on them, there can be the impact is heavy.
Absolutely. So yes, we are living in a borderless workplace environment, and as you rightly said, controls, data usability, visibility, and identity. Who has access to what is very, very important. Mahendra, let's hear from you. How is McAfee again helping enterprises to detect, discover, and secure their cloud infrastructure, secure their workloads and data, and what will it really take to build a cloud-centric security architecture?
Thanks, Ashwin. So yeah, what Om said, no, in fact, we at McAfee also see very similar across multiple organizations where the perimeter is very very thin, or I would say it is dissolved, and the data which earlier primarily used to be in the corporate, now it's across the cloud as well as the corporate data center, or if the employee, say for example, if it's a developer, it's there on the devices as well, and the device is moving continuously. So at McAfee, what we have been working through, and we also look at what the analysts are talking about. Are we moving into the right direction? So basically, the Gartner, for example, you would have heard about SASE, for example. It's a framework which was proposed by Gartner as well, a couple of years back. And in fact, most of the enterprises are moving towards how can we have one view of data from a threat perspective, data loss prevention perspective. How can we detect and protect wherever the data is moving, okay, not just the corporate, but across device, across corporate data center, and across cloud as well. And looking at that, what we have also designed solutions so that it can be work in a completely cloud environment or in a hybrid environment as well, because at times it could be purely on the cloud or it could be a mixed environment as well, right? So the solution should be such that it is picking up basically identifying data from detection perspective and prevention perspective from the corporate data centers. If the data is the cloud in the form of applications, they should be able to detect that as well, and have the right controls from data exfiltration perspective. For example, data moving natively from one cloud platform, which could be an application hosted in AWS or Azure, for example, and going out to another cloud. Now that could be personal, that could be business partners, cloud, take care of that as well, cloud movement of data. Or from work from home perspective, somebody's downloading or accessing data from the cloud or from the corporate data center, having a secure access to those private apps, and data prevention or data loss prevention for that as well. Secure access and DLP on top of it. So all these are very, very integral part. And McAfee unified cloud edge, for example, addresses all of these. Okay, a centralized view of data and threat protection for device, cloud, corporate data center, all of them put together, and management from a policy perspective, from an incident perspective, all happens from one single place, single pane of glass. That is what we see, goes well with customers because that's what they're looking at. And even the analysts, for example, Gartner is going to come up with a new architecture, which is purely on the security side of it, which is Secure Service Edge, SSE. Which primarily talks about how are we securing the data, how we're securing the threat across device, cloud, and data centers.
Right. Absolutely, Mahendra. So, visibility and control can easily be lost when users, devices, and data are created everywhere and stored virtually, everywhere. Would these solutions allow organizations to unify their network and security tools in a single management console? You touched upon that. And, how do they go about, if they are planning to move in this direction, both for a SASE environment or SSE that you mentioned?
Right. So from a SASE, for example, it's a framework. Now, and SASE essentially has two components. One is the network part of it, which is network connectivity, and the second is the security, network security, I would call it, or data security. Now, the new SSE framework, which is coming up, that primarily talks about the security part of it. Okay. Now, it could be network component could be made, from one specific solution, or it could be from two different, not that, everything has to happen from one vendor. It could be a collaborated approach, right? And that is where everyone in the industry is also working, have a good collaboration between the connectivity and the security as well. McAfee plays the most important role in the security side of it, which is where the SSC is, which essentially is going to combine three different areas. One is the cloud access security, which is CASB. Second is the web proxy. Now, web proxy, the next gen web proxy talks about a lot of things, access to the cloud applications in a secure fashion. And third is the zero trust network architecture, which essentially ensures that we provide a secure access to those applications which are internal to the organization. And then on top of it, a common layer of data protection and threat protection. That's essentially the whole area or the place where everyone is going. And that is what SSC is going to talk about. And McAfee is also positioned very, very strongly to address this segment.
Right. Very interesting. Om, any viewpoint, any views that you have around this?
Yeah, so just to add on, so adopting SASE framework or SSE is a roadmap which needs to be approached in a structured manner, and you need to select a platform which can help you meet that roadmap faster and in more structured manner as you have the life cycle going in through. There are three reasons why it is very important. One, the platform will give you a comprehensive step-up plan to adopt and fulfill all your goals as per the roadmap what you build, because you have already invested in your existing infrastructure and you can't go away with that. It's a life cycle in which the existing infrastructure works around. So our objective is to tackle that in a structured manner. So the uniform platforms gives you a step-up goal in which you can meet your timelines. Secondly, as you enhance your migration to cloud, as you look into the controls, you also start measuring them very well. So you get proper analytics. You can look at how do you improve. So the knowledge of the platform or the framework which you analyze and apply on, that becomes very common, very standard across. And lastly, since it's a common platform, your growth and your transformation is justified and taken up in a structured manner. So this is where we are heading into in terms of, this is my recommendation to customers, that whenever they are adopting, look at what platforms they adopt, what is the structure they embrace. There are frameworks which are given by Gartner, but then how a particular platform and an approach will fulfill your long-term program is really important and should be evaluated well.
Right. One question that I had, and since this conversation is more centered around security in the cloud, now we are all living in a multi-cloud era where most organizations work with multiple infrastructure and cloud providers. Each of these providers again have their own version of what the shared responsibility model is, who takes ownership in case of a security incidents. So overall, there is some lack of clarity somewhere when it comes to the responsibility piece of who owns what. Do you think this is a concern, or is it overrated that way?
Yeah.
Anyone, please.
You can go ahead, please.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. When I interact with customers, I also could feel at some places there is confusion in terms of responsibility. If there is something which happens in the cloud platform, who's going to take that up? Is it me as a customer, or is it the cloud provider? Whose responsibility could that be? Very valid. And if we look at the shared responsibility model, when it comes to data which is stored, data is mine as a customer. So wherever the data resides, it doesn't matter whether it's a corporate or it's in the cloud or device. Wherever the data is, it would be my data, because end of the day, if it's lost, it would impact me. So it would always be my responsibility as a customer. Okay, and to have the right tools, technologies, processes in place to secure that would be my responsibility. That's how I look at it, and most of the enterprises also would agree with this kind of approach. That's my view on that.
Yes, so
I just adding on to what Mahendra talked about. One of the important things is the third factor which he missed is people like us who help customers undertake that transformative journey from one platform to another. So when we look at it, we evaluate in terms of what architecture the customer is adopting, what is the framework, what is his strategic roadmap, what has been agreed upon, and he is moving on to that framework, and that really helps to support in multi-cloud scenario. I will never say it's fair to it's unfair to assume that traditional architecture or traditional compute will go away. They will still reside, but there will be a balance in which how this architectures will embrace each other, and there will be transformation around that. The true transformation will start hitting in once you also get 5G onto the network. So you would have a lot of I would say quantifying, multiply by 5 times the ton of data flowing around at the speed of light is that way that what the Geos and the Vodafones and Bharti promise. But then this transformation will create a lot of data. There will be a lot of usage of technologies like artificial intelligence, where a lot of these things will be utilized to analyze and baseline certain behaviors and track. But then we also need to understand that AIs are also used maliciously, and most of the time they start with the malicious intent. So how do you counter? How do you manage? And how do you secure yourself against the changing scenarios is something when we look at it, especially when we are looking at convergence of in manufacturing like IT and OT data. You would have a lot of SCADA machines now reporting real time into ERP. A lot of these controllers and data ERP platforms are now becoming cloud based. You have new age vehicles, transportations coming in which are internet enabled. You have scooters whose patch gets updated on the wire. You would have new analytics based on how do you ride your vehicle, and those are all analyzed, and your battery is optimized. So a lot of this data which helps you to build your service architecture will gear in. There has to be a very strong security framework, one to be adopted across in the industry, and there has to be a platform which helps you to analyze and give you that kind of insights and controls to be ability to stop anything harmful happening within that ecosystem what you have created. So this is what the challenge will lie, and this is what we look at it and the value we wish to provide when we connect with the customers as we take in the new age digital transformation.
Absolutely. So CIOs and CISOs both, need to think very differently with the new technologies that they are bringing in within their environments. Also around how they manage the risk and the manner in which they deploy their security infrastructure. I guess we are running short on time. A final wrap-up question, quickly. How or what would be your suggestions for companies who are looking to gear up for cloud security and prepare for the new ways of working? Final comments from
Sure. What I see, a lot of times, not everywhere, but during my interactions, sometimes security is comes in afterthought. First, you maybe, for example, a customer wants to move the workloads. Movement happens and security comes later. Oh, how do we secure it? Typically, that should not be the case. Whenever we are planning, as Om mentioned, it should be a platform, it should be a framework. So we should embed security at the time of our planning stage. That if we are moving something to the cloud, for example, which is outside our perimeter, because we are taking leverage or leveraging the multi-cloud environment, security should also get built into that. A thought should be there. What are the tools and processes we should embed so that we take care of security as well? Business is good, but security is equally important.
Right. So secure by design, have security built in from day one rather than have it bolt in at a later stage.
I think Mahendra covered it very well, that security by design is definitely required. But I would also add on to it that this design has to be validated, on a periodic basis, because as your business priorities and as your engagement changes, it is just that, the way things change, you need to validate it at a periodic manner, build more adaptive, and be scalable in terms of, how would you look at achieving certain set of controls by a totally different set of means. So some of these innovative, ideas and sets are to be adopted. And this is the very nature of the times where we are living in, where things change rapidly, the service architectures in which way we do our business changes. Hence, our IT and digital transformation comes into play. And similarly, it gives in new holes, but new mechanisms in terms of how do you plug in those holes and provide better control. So a lot of these things are, customers are there to adopt. Just a simple, small example, microservices. You don't build your applications. You just integrate, your set of services onto microservices and start utilizing. And your app development and service deployment architecture is, very fast. But what if you have a malware attack? Okay. Now you have a set of infrastructure. You quickly create another set of infrastructure coming in terms of the new architecture. But you would require that old set of architecture to do your malware analysis as to where your holes got exposed. So I'm just trying to tell that, those traditional controls of analysis, detection, and forensics will be there. But then your impact on business and changes what you make in terms of availability will be addressed quicker. But then the way we analyze and where we help our customers will always have to change, because we also need to adapt to those architectures.
Right. I guess, I'll quickly summarize, Om and Mahendra. I think it's beyond doubt that enterprises have been forced to move data security even higher up on their agenda. Security today is not only critical, but will also serve as a competitive differentiator. Speaking specifically of cloud security, I guess, you both have highlighted on the importance of having visibility and control and the overall management, which is very essential for a secure cloud environment. Thank you, Om and Mahendra, for your insights. It was nice to have this discussion with you. Thank you, and stay tuned for our next session.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Ashwani.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.